Abusia Team Legal Wives finally omotimi ahave omo second press conference I told ya ewo Kumase Stadium Hotel eho enetimi eto ekoso na press conference no ensem ewom papa ensem ewom omotimi eyiye maame Akosua Serwaa nensem biara ehanu biara etimi epie ewo press conference ya etimi etodwa Yebenya konya ne akwakotie ensem no mu dosopo die kire ene the next forward adia Team Legal Wives omo ebeya ebepom na afenso apilia omo ekono omo nyakonya etimi akọ amebibia ateta nakwem enso ano yebasere se obenya konya subscribe channel eti amay o subscribe wepe message obemia bell no anytime yebe update no obenya notification na wetimi enjoy the ekoso ewo ye platform so M&B Express Logistic se yen kanchiro se enei se opese ope unya cars eto cars ya efo cars ya papa dia blomo asoye omo Canada omo akire se aha ye cars na ewo garage no boarding panti ombeboa na watimi enya cars ya efo ewo Canada enti contact omo number no eho Canada cars na efo pa ni nyina so ye papa afen so omonya konya edi cars bia bagana enti upe bia na wa from na afen so watimi enjoy M&B omo ensa no juma omo eye na bibia timi ada kwenti frɛ number na egu flyer no so na ne M&B Express Logistic eninkitawo na bibia entimi enda kwayenko na press conference ye timi etoko so edma Team Legal Wives no yenko hwe emra
straightforward granted in her 1991 customary and 2004 German civil marriage. A declaration that she was the surviving spouse. B, a declaration that only she had the right. C, an order restraining the family head from dealing with Priscilla Ofori as a spouse. D, an order restraining Priscilla Ofori from parading as the surviving spouse. The defendant through pose entitled Priscilla Ofori through her lawyer A.K. Osei Owusu Esquire with Kwesi Mensah Nyakon Esquire even filed a counterclaim asserting she was the validly customarily married wife since 2010. The family head Kofi Owusu, represented by Fatih Ali Yala Esquire, brief held by Dominic Kwadwo Osei Esquire, with Al Alassa Hudi Esquire, supported to narrate alleging Mrs. Fosu had abandoned her husband and presented dissolution drinks years prior. The injunction A, temporarily beacon of due process, as the defendant rushed to bury the Dilumba on December 13, 2025, without involving Mrs. Akosua Serwaa and her children. An urgent intervention was needed. The maternal family, including the deceased sister Ernestina Fosu, filed for an interlocutory injunction. This was heard on December 12, 2025, before His Lordship Justice Emmanuel Kofi Diaba in the Accra High Court, suit number GJ 0205/2026. The plaintiff's lawyer, Thomas Tinkran Ishon Esquire, with George Agbeko Esquire and Elizabeth Lamte Esquire, successfully argued for a halt to the exclusionary funeral plan. Justice Diaba ruled was a demand. Justice Diaba's rule was a diamond indictment of the defendant conduct. 1. He restrained Mr. Kofi Owusu from organizing the barrier. 2. 2, he restrained Transition Funeral Home from releasing the body. 3, spouses and children of the deceased to plan a proper funeral. Critically, he ordered the separation of funeral funds from the Daddy Lumba Memorial Foundation LBG account, highlighting grave concerns over financial coming. This injunction, issued by Registrar Doris Danswa, was a clear judicial recognition that due process and the rights of the immediate family were being trampled. It was a fleeting victory for transparency. The justice during the judgment, a masterclass in evidential asymmetry. A few weeks prior, the substantive case was heard before Her Ladyship Justice Dorinda Smith-Atta at the Kumasi High Court. The judge delivered on November 28, 2025, and bearing the case tag TLP/HC/2025/04, became the instrument of injustice. The core of the injustice lies in the judge's radically different treatment of evidence from the two sides. 1, the dismissal of the German marriage, which is the one that the plaintiff showed up. Justice Atta rejected the German marriage certificate provided by Mrs. Akosua Serwaa Team. Her reason, as detailed in the judgment, exposes a refusal to engage with the evidence properly. She stated the document needed authentication under Section 161 of the Evidence Act, requiring certification by the German authorities and then by the Ghana diplomatic mission. However, she then admitted that the plaintiff counsel argued there were practical hardships in meeting these demands on time. Instead of using the court's authority to facilitate this process, she required verification via mutual legal counsel, or even accept the document conditionally pending authentication. She simply rejected them. She fixed on the absence of spousal signatures on the German certificate, using this to question its validity, while acknowledging she is not a signature expert. She failed to ascertain through proper inquiry a basic judicial duty that German civil marriage certificates do not typically bear the spouses' signatures, and fact that could have been easily verified. She dismissed photographs of the signing ceremony and letter from the German embassy. In the Kumasi High Court judge, her leadership during the Atta Smith, she did not order a forensic audit or seek official verification from Germany. She used to exclude the central piece of evidence, declaring Exhibit B, B1, and C as having probative value. Secondly, the acceptance of the customary marriage claim the second defendant evidence is sharp contrast. Justice Atta accepted Priscilla Ofori's claim of a 2010 customary marriage based on evidence that would not survive the slightest scrutiny if the same standard was applied. The primary witness was James Beniako Boating, which is the DW1, Priscilla Ofori's brother-in-law. He testified to attending a marriage ceremony at Tantra Hill. In April 2010, no group 1991 and the second defendant in 2010. Therefore, both were representatives for the third defendant, which is the funeral home, where Ebenezer Ejebediakon Esquire with Edward Omane Esquire. The irony of the injunction lapses. Adding insult to injury, the injunction granted by Justice Diaba that very day, which had forced the inclusions of Mrs. Akosua Serwaa Team, was lifted within an hour on December 12, 2025, because the applicants could not meet the exhibitants, which is the 20 million Ghana cedis in our old currency is 20 billion. Deposit imposed as a condition. This allowed the very funeral planning to resume, proving that justice often has a price to pay for. In summary, the history of these cases reveals a devastating pattern. A lawful wife document evidence was dismissed on hyper-technical grounds without judicial effort to verify it, while the contradictory undocumented claims of another were accepted based on the timeliness. Most self-serving testimony. The lawyers for Mrs. Akosua Serwaa Team performed their duty by they argued before a court that applied two different standards of proof. The names Justice Dorinda Smith-Atta and Justice Emmanuel Kofi Diaba are now entirely linked to this case. One for upholding due process and the other for presiding over a final judgment that has become a benchmark for judicial failure and injustice. To continue with the justice denied, legality and inheritance fraud, the judgment delivered by Her Ladyship Justice Dorinda Smith-Atta in the case of Mrs. Akosua panii, Kofi Owusu, and us is not merely a legal ruling. It is a formal blueprint for injustice. It satisfies through a veneer of judicial procedure, a comprehensive campaign of inheritance of fundamental. The court always facilitated this fraud by violating core principles of legal. Last in court handling of the plate, attention as it not as a gateway to truth, but as a barricade against the Constitution, a criminal offense. State she's a single as of 2025. Her claim in court is that she has been married since 2010. Both cannot be true. This is not a minor discrepancy. It is direct, actionable perjury on matters central to the case. Justice Atter's judgment ignores this fact. Justice Atter's judgment ignores this fatal contradiction to her credibility. By validating her claim, the court has endorsed a fraudulent declaration to a foreign government. The fraudulent transfer of property. Inheritance fraud occurs when assets are unlawfully diverted from their rightful heirs. The material states that properties in Tantra Hill and Dome were built by Mr. and Mrs. Fosu. Yet, it is documented that Priscilla Ofori has given away these houses to her brother and his wife and his extended family. The court declaration of her as a surviving spouse provides a fraudulent legal cover for this theft. Let's continue. It transforms criminal misappropriate into a semi-legitimate act of a widow managing marital property. This is the very essence of inheritance fraud, using a false status to justify the looting of another's legacy. The complicity role of officers of the court. The fraud extends beyond the judge's bench. The on-authority lawyer materials raise serious concerns about a lawyer acting on behalf of Daddy Lumba's estate without a verified will or power of attorney from the lawful next of kin. This lawyer allegedly allowed Priscilla family to occupy and rent the Fosu properties. A lawyer's duty is to uphold the law, not to facilitate the unilateral distribution of a diseased asset against the interest of the legitimate family. This conduct, which should be investigated by the General Legal Counsel, is a professional enabler of the fraud. The financial coming, the injunction ruling by Justice Diaba exposed another layer of potential fraud. The court found it necessary to order the separation of funeral funds from the Daddy Lumba Memorial Foundation LBG account. This indicates that donation from the public given in memory of the icon were potentially being mixed with private funeral or other finances, creating opaque sludge found controlled by those seeking to exclude the lawful family. This is a gross abuse of charitable sentiment and public trust. Obstructions of investigative justice. True justice seeks all facts. The environment created for the lawful family was one of deliberate obstructions, preventing any challenging to the emerging narrative. The body and the autopsy The lawful wife and children were denied access to Daddy Lumba's body for months. Their request for an independent autopsy, a standard right to ascertain cause of death, especially given the unclear circumstances, was blocked. Without an autopsy, questions about the sudden death remain unanswered, and a fundamental tool for investigative justice was nullified. The false narrative of abandonment, the court, by focusing on physical separation, allow a defamatory and false narrative to stand that Mrs. Fosu abandoned her husband. This narrative, crucial to the defendant's case, was disproven by evidence of her financial support, medication purchases, and visits. Yet, by not condemning this falsehood explicitly, the judgment lent it a shadow of legitimacy, further defrauding Mrs. Fosu of her moral and reputational rights. Justice was not merely denied, it was weaponized to retrace the judgment of Justice Dr. Dorinda Smith-Atta. Legitimized document fraud by ignoring incontrovertible proof of perjury. Sanction indicates sanction inheritance, theft by proving a judicial stamp to the misappropriation of jointly built marital asset, violated evidential fairness by erecting barriers for one side while laying out a welcome mat for the other, enable financial by failing to condemn the alarming coming of public moral funds. This case is no longer just about the Fosu family. I repeat it. This case is no longer just about the Fosu family. It is a precedent. It demonstrates how a corrupt interpretation of procedure, coupled with a refusal to pursue obvious truth, can transform a court a law of instrument for ratifying fraud. The legality has been twisted to deny justice, and the inheritance has been stolen under the court's solemn seal. This is the ultimate denial. A solemn appeal to conscience and authority. Good. We have laid bare the facts. Okay, we have come. We have laid bare the facts. We have exposed the inconsistency, the procedural injustice, and the devastating consequence of a flawed judgment. Now, he turned from recounting this wrong to demanding its remedy. We appeal not with anger. Therefore, I repeat it. We appeal not with anger, but with a determined call for the restoration of order, of truth, and the rule of law in Ghana. I'm repeating myself. We appeal not with anger, but with a determined call for the restoration of order and truth and the rule of law in Ghana. To the people of Ghana and the court of public opinion, you are the ultimate guidance of our nation's souls. We appeal to your innate sense of fairness. Look at the evidence presented a wife of over 30 years, a co-builder of a legacy, has been stripped of her status by a court that rejected her document on technicalities it made no effort to resolve. Look at the claimant who declares herself single to foreign government while claiming to be a wife in our court. This is not a complex legal mystery. It is a clear moral and factual wrong. Okay? This is not a complex legal mystery. It is a clear moral and factual wrong. We ask you to stand with truth, amplifying this story, demanding accountability. Let no one say that Ghanaians stood silent while such an injustice was perpetrated in their name. Abusiafo, we are demanding accountability. Let no one say that Ghanaians stood silent while such an injustice was perpetrated in their name. To the judiciary and the Judicial Council, we appeal for urgent review and introspections. The judgment in Mrs. Akosua Serwaa Team versus Panii Kofi Owusu and us are shaking public confidence when a court dismisses a core civil document without exhaustive forensic verification while accepting contradictory oral claims. It sets a dangerous precedent. We appeal for a scrutiny of this specific judgment and the conduct that led to it. The judiciary must be a fortress of impartiality, not a stage for evidence. Uphold the integrity of your noble institution by ensuring this matter is revisiting with the rigor, fairness, and pursuit of truth that every citizen deserves. To His Excellency the President, the Attorney General, and the Ghana Police Service, we appeal for executive and investigative actions. This case has spiraled beyond a civil dispute into matters demanding criminal investigation. Investigate the circumstance of death, the family's right to an autopsy and transparent inquest into the death of Charles Kojo Fosu has been obstructed. We appeal for state intervention to ensure this occurs. Please, Mr. President, we appeal for state intervention to ensure this occurs. Investigate potential fraud and perjury, the glaring contradiction between Priscilla Ofori's sworn single status on official document and marriage claim in court demands a criminal investigation for potential perjury and fraud on immigration and corporate documents. Investigate the misappropriation of assets and funds, the alleged gifting of the Fosu marital properties to the family of Priscilla Ofori, and the coming of public funeral donations, as noted by the High Court. Okay, as noted by the High Court, must be investigated as potential theft and financial malfeasance. Investigate the conduct of the unauthorized lawyer. The Ghana Bar Association must urgently investigate the lawyer who has allegedly assumed control to estate assets without legal authority from the lawful family. Please, Abusiafo, I'm repeating this for the Ghana Bar Association, must urgently investigate the lawyer who has allegedly assumed control of estate assets without legal authority from the lawful family. To the chiefs and traditional rulers of Ghana, the traditional rulers of the Ashanti Kingdom, we ask that you use your rate standing in society to bring about justice and fairness as according to tradition. To the diaspora, our family abroad, we make a special appeal to you. You have seen how the lawful wife and a diaspora Ghanaian like many of you has been treated. If her legal marriage can be dismissed, her properties seized, and her rights voided, what security do your investment and legacy back home have? Your remittance contributing billions annually to Ghana's stability are sent with trust. That the trust is broken when the system fails to protect your own. We appeal for your powerful voice. Lend your influence, your networks, and your demand for accountability to this cause. This thing is about the diaspora. Okay? You need to lend your influence, your networks, and your demand for accountability to this cause. Your engagement is crucial. To international observers and human rights bodies, we appeal for your witness. This is a case study in the deprivation of a woman's right to properly inheritance and fair judicial process. Watch this space. Hold Ghana accountable to its own laws and its international commitment to justice and gender equality. Whilst I'm ending my statement, I'm going to the international observers and human rights bodies. We appeal for your witness. This is the case study in the deprivation of a woman's right to properties, inheritance, and fair judicial process. Watch this space. Hold Ghana accountable to its own laws and its international commitment to justice and gender equality. To end my press statement, our profound appreciation. In this difficult journey, we have not been alone. We concluded not with a note of despair, but with deep and sincere gratitude. We thank the moral and courageous members of the media, here present and abroad. Your dedication to uncovering and reporting the truth is the oxygen of democracy. You have given voice to the voiceless, and for that, we are entirely grateful. We thank the many legal professionals, academics, and civil society advocates who have reviewed this case, offered their counsel, and spoken out privately and publicly against the injustice they see. Your expertise and solidarity fortify our resolve. We thank the maternal family of the late Mr. Kwadwo Charles Fosu, especially his sister, Miss Ernestina Fosu, Mame Akosua Brimpoma, for their courage, instant for truth within fractions family contest, even obtaining a crucial injunction to halt and exclusion, to halt a funeral. I think that one, we have a family member here who acknowledge or tell us something about that. We extend gratitude to the members of the public, both in Ghana and across the globe, who have listened, analyzed, and expressed their support. Your messages, you share outrage, and your prayers have been shelled against diaspora. Finally, we thank Mrs. Akosua Serwaa and children for their unwavering strength and dignity in the face of a torrent of deception and institutional failure. Your fight is our fight. Mrs. Akosua Serwaa, your fight is our fight. This press conference is not an end. I mean, this press conference that we are doing is not an end. It is a clarion call marking the beginning of a sustained campaign for rectification. We will use very lawful and peaceful means available. We will not rest until the marriage certificate is recognized. The stolen properties are recovered. The body is respectfully laid to rest by his rightful family. And those who have perpetrated this fraud are held to account. The truth crash to earth shall rise again. We stand with truth. Team Legal Wife, we move. Team Legal Wives,
we move.
Team Legal Wives and Husbands, we move.
And we pray.
Thank you very much.